Hey everyone, welcome back to Next Gen New Mexico. From Albuquerque, I'm your host, Joshua Neal, and today we're going to dive into a topic that I find absolutely fascinating, but it's also really important. How a bill becomes a law in New Mexico. Since the legislative session just began earlier this week, I figured it'd be a perfect time for us to dive into this and pull back the curtain on this process. By the end of this episode, I'm hoping that you'll have a solid understanding of how the decisions shaping our state's future come to life. So picture this, it's mid-January and the Roundhouse in Santa Fe is alive with energy. If you've never been to the Roundhouse, it's actually a really nice building. It's a really large art museum, and it's also shaped like the Zia symbol, which is the New Mexico state flag. In New Mexico, the legislative calendar alternates between 60-day and 90-day sessions, and this year, 2025, is a 60-day session. So that should give lawmakers time to debate a wide range of issues beyond just the state budget. The session will kick off at noon on the third Tuesday in January, and it runs through mid-March. So let's talk about how the whole process gets started, with an idea. Ideas for legislation can come from all sorts of places. They can come from constituents, they can come from advocacy groups, they can come from government agencies, or sometimes lawmakers themselves will come up with the ideas. Maybe somebody thinks, hey, we need better infrastructure in these rural areas. Or maybe somebody else will say, hey, what if we improved the water conservation laws? Or maybe somebody else will say, crime is completely out of control and we've got to do something about it. That idea that they came up with can become a bill when a legislator picks it up and decides to sponsor it. And this is the point where the Legislative Counsel Service, or LCS, will step in. So typically, a legislator will come to the LCS with an idea and with specific details for the bill, and then the LCS will actually draft the bill, ensuring that it's clear, it's detailed, and most importantly, that it complies with all of the state laws. It's kind of a behind-the-scenes process, but it's really critical because a poorly written bill can face legal challenges later. Once the draft is ready, then the legislator will carry the bill to whatever chamber they're a part of. So if they're a representative, then they'll take it to the House. If they're a senator, they'll take it to the Senate, and they'll introduce the bill. The bill is then assigned a number, House Bill 123 or Senate Bill 456, for example, and then it's ready for its first official test. And this is where the heavy lifting really begins, in the committees. So every bill is assigned to one or more committees, depending on the topic. For instance, an education-related bill might go to the Education Committee, while a tax bill could land up in the Taxation and Revenue Committee. Committees are crucial because they dig into the details. Members, who are actual legislators, will listen to testimony from experts, lobbyists, and everyday citizens. Yeah, you heard that right, from everyday citizens, which means that you can participate too. Public input is critical, especially at this stage, in shaping how a bill evolves. But here's the catch. Not all bills will make it out of committees. If a bill gets tabled, it essentially goes into legislative limbo. It's dead. But if the committee votes, quote-unquote, do pass or do pass as amended, the bill advances to the floor of the chamber where it was introduced. Now it's time for the big leagues, the floor debate. Here, the entire chamber, all the legislators, either in the House or the Senate, will review the bill. Legislators will discuss its merits, they'll talk about possible amendments, and sometimes they'll even engage in these really heated debates. It's democracy in action, and so it can get pretty dramatic. Once the debate wraps up, then it's time to vote. A bill needs a majority to pass, and every vote is counted and recorded. This transparency allows constituents like you and me to see exactly where our representatives stand on the issue, so it's really important. If a bill passes the first chamber, then it's off to the second chamber to repeat the process. For example, if it started in the House, it now heads to the Senate. And sometimes, when it gets to the other chamber, there's some disagreements on how the bill should go, and the second chamber will make changes to the bill. When that happens, the original chamber must agree to the changes. It's a process called concurrence. If they can't agree, then a conference committee is formed, and this small group of legislators, with representatives from both chambers, will work out a compromise. And once both chambers pass the final version, the bill is sent to the governor. And this is where things can get even more interesting. The governor has several options. They can sign the bill into law, veto it outright, or in the case of appropriation bills, use a line item veto to reject specific parts. The governor can also pocket veto a bill, which means that she refuses to act on it and it times out. If the governor vetoes a bill, the legislature can override the veto with a 2/3 majority in both chambers. But let's be honest, that's a really high bar to clear and doesn't happen very often. Even after a bill is signed, it doesn't always take effect immediately. Some bills include emergency clauses, meaning they become law as soon as the governor signs them. Others have specified start dates, like the beginning of the next fiscal year, or a set number of days after the session ends. So why should you care about all of this? Because every law affects us in some way, whether it's education funding, healthcare access, or public safety. And here's the great part. You can influence this process. Reach out to your legislators, attend committee hearings, or even testify on a bill. Most committee meetings are open to the public and they'll be streamed online. Your voice matters, and legislators pay close attention to what their constituents have to say. So as the 2025 session begins, take a moment to think about the issues that matter most to you. Is there a law that you'd like to see changed or an idea that you'd like to share? Contact your representatives and get involved. Remember, democracy is not a spectator sport. It's something that we build together. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Next Gen New Mexico. If you found this helpful, share it with your friends and your family. Don't forget to subscribe. And until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and let's build a better New Mexico.